which is very, very important. Where are we at in the cycle?
Yeah, so most diagnostic tests launch as what's called a lab-developed test. And so these are tests that are run from a single lab location and reported out from a single lab location. So you might have heard of non-invasive prenatal testing. That's something that is launched as a lab-developed test, and those actually never got FDA approval. We, because we feel such a sense of urgency around this huge unmet need, 600,000 people every year are dying from cancer in the United States alone. 70% of those cancer types don't have a recommended screening test at all. So we have a huge opportunity. We have really robust clinical validation data in over 21,000 patients across 2 very robust clinical studies. We felt a huge sense of urgency to launch this as a lab-developed test in 2021, as you mentioned, while we concurrently pursued FDA approval. So we are working down the path towards FDA approval, which will then, to your point, help with reimbursement, which will help with broad adoption.
So also why I'm excited about this is because this test, doing it every single year, doesn't necessarily say if you have a tumor or some other element of cancer, it doesn't have to be visible. Where most people are waiting till maybe the lump has gotten big enough that they're concerned and then going to the doctor. This is at the most micro level of blood, and therefore one of the advantages is that you could possibly catch things stage 1, stage 2 in a much earlier case, and then go on to get the proper other testing, not proper testing, but other diagnostics with your oncologist or whatever, and build a program. But stage 1 and 2 is obviously much more critical than later stage cancer. And this is something that's very important about this test.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So screening tests are very specifically designed for patients who don't have symptoms when you're asymptomatic. And so this test, in addition to the 5 recommended cancer screens, can screen for many, many more cancer types. Because those cancer types historically haven't had a recommended screening test, there's been no way to detect them when patients are asymptomatic before those symptoms appear. The problem is that when symptoms appear, the cancers tend to be later stage, which makes them much harder to treat. The outcomes are much worse, and it's unfortunately also more expensive to treat. So there's a lot of advantages to implementing a screening test like this to detect more of those 70% of cancers that people are dying from that haven't had a screening test in the past.
So we're here at the Galleri Classic in Rancho Mirage, Mission Hills Country Club. I'm going to be here all the way through Sunday. Now we have a lab that's right here, phlebotomy lab. You can actually sign up, and if you're qualified, 50 or over, or at risk maybe with cancer, you're qualified for this test, and you can do it right here. They're providing a discount. There is some cost to it.
There is. It's still out of pocket right now because it's not covered by most insurance carriers. There are some progressive insurance carriers who are covering it for their constituents, but not the major insurance carriers